Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. As we continue our discussion on the 5 more things you can do to improve your relationships, I want to dive in today a little bit further into grace. Now, if you were able to catch episode 467, which is technically episode number 2 of this theme week and this series of 5 episodes, you heard me talk about grace and speaking kindly quite a bit. But I think there's a component of grace that we all tend to forget about. And I want to talk about that today because that can cause the biggest improvement into our relationships. So, what is that component of grace? Now, when I say grace, it is not meant in more of a spiritual sense, but it's meant in a sense of forgiveness. Now, that is not saying that you forgive people who have deeply wronged you. That is not where I'm going on this. That is up to you. Granted, I think that you should forgive for yourself. That doesn't mean that you need to necessarily stay with an individual who has deeply hurt you or harmed you, yada, yada, yada. Like, you know the boundaries here. I don't feel like I need to say, like, hey, if someone's abusing you mentally, emotionally, physically, or they're cheating on you, or whatever that is, like, you need to make those decisions for you. However, in an instance of improving healthy relationships, and in an instance of improving your relationship with yourself, grace with the equivalent of forgiveness is so important. So important. Because when we hold on to every little story and we hold on to everything somebody's ever done wrong, that's when we start to build up resentment and anger. We start to build up our defense walls. And what's interesting is you look at this for yourself, and this is really mind-blowing, at least to me. When you look at this for yourself, if you remember every little mean thing that your partner did and that they said and how it made you feel, and you start building up those walls so that you don't feel it again, but you're not necessarily leaving them because you love them, and so you're like in this weird in-between limbo of anger and resentment and hoping to have a relationship that's improved, it's really, really hard, right? Here's the mind-blowing part. How many of you remember all the negative things that you've told yourself and you've remembered them, and deep down you've built up some sort of negative emotion against yourself? For many of us, that negative emotion is along the lines of, oh my goodness, wow, so sorry guys. I'm telling you, this cold has lasted a month and it is kicking my butt. And if you're like, seriously, just edit out the sneezes, you should know that I record the podcast practically live. I record it live on audio and live on video at the same time. And I'm 3 minutes in of pure gold minus the sneeze, so I don't want to start over. So I appreciate you bearing with me on it not being perfect, but continuing to make progress to be better so I'm not coughing and sneezing the whole episode. All right, but coming back to center here. When we hold on to those angry thoughts, when we hold on to those negative sentences that we say to ourselves, we build that wall up against a relationship with ourselves. Now, hear me out on this, because again, that's like, wait, what? No, I wouldn't do that. I know. Like I said, this is mind-blowing right now. You say something negative to yourself. Your deepest level of who you are knows it's not true. So they build up a wall. And it's almost like there's an external shell of you. And you'll hear this oftentimes when people say, like, the child version of you. The version of you before you got hurt. The version of you before you were abused or traumatized. The version of you before you went out into the real world and discovered that stuff kind of sucks. At whatever point in time that was for you, whoever that child is before all that happened, a lot of, I'm going to say, experts in the space of forgiveness will say that that person, that child, is deep inside you, protected by these walls. And everything else is this outer shell that you have created to protect yourself. So this outer shell of who you are says, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm not worthy, I'll never get that. And that little, we're going to say that childlike version of you, but really I believe it's your best self that's there. Goes, I don't believe that. I think I am worthy. I think I can do these things. But I don't want to hear these words because they hurt and I hold on to them. So I'm just going to build more of a tougher skin around me, which creates a tougher exterior to the world, which then creates an attitude where you can't forgive people, where you are one tough person and nobody can take you down because your external is protecting that very precious internal, but the internal is protecting you against you. Does that make sense? It's this really mind-blowing concept of grace and forgiveness. It's super hard to forgive other people if we can't break down and forgive ourselves. And by break down, I mean break down those walls. Start to blend your best self with the self that's been protecting you. And change your language. And most importantly, give yourself grace and forgiveness when you slip up. Because however old you are, you have a library catalog in your head. Like, I'm going old school, like the card catalogs you'd pull out the Dewey Decimal System and know where to get your book. Yeah, that's what we're talking here. Pull that out and you have a card catalog in your brain of all the things that you have said that you've been keeping record, and that's what's helped building that wall. And so when you take one out and you replace it with a positive, 1 out of 50 million doesn't feel like it's that big of a difference. And it's easy to fall back in the habit and the pattern of speaking negatively to yourself and continuing to build those walls. However, you have to stay with it. You can't say, oh, I tried and I just couldn't do it, so I guess I'm broken and I'm stuck the way I am. No. You need to fight for that higher, your best self that's trapped inside. Meaning you give yourself grace when you say something like, oh gosh, I'm so stupid. The one I still really struggle with is like, oh, I'm bad at math. I don't like numbers. And I'm like, why do I say that? I could like math. I could like numbers, but I keep on telling myself I don't. So I hold myself back and I build that wall against math and numbers. But in reality, I'm just telling myself something negative that I don't have to believe. So I have to give myself grace and forgiveness that I'm a work in progress. I need to focus on my language and start changing things for myself. And start taking out those negative cards faster and putting in the positive cards faster. And swapping those out. But knowing that if a negative phrase comes up, it's okay. I'm a work in progress. I don't have to be perfect. But I understand that I need to build that connection between my best self and my outer shell so that I can be one whole and happier person. And when you can do that, then the opportunity to provide grace and forgiveness to the people you're in relationships with, the people around you, it has so much more capacity for it. So much more of a vastness to be able to allow grace to other people, which in turn will strengthen and deepen your connections and relationships with them. They will feel it. They will see it. You will love yourself more, and then they will love you more, and you will love yourself more and love them more. So much anger and hate and self-deprecating language is stored in that outer shell to protect us. But if you're here listening to this episode, you're probably past the point where that shell of protection isn't needed anymore. But instead, you know you need to step into your best self to really be happier and achieve your dreams. Which means to improve that relationship with yourself, and then through a ripple effect with others, you need to allow yourself grace and forgiveness. So I hope this episode made sense and really connected those dots for you. It's kind of an abstract topic for me to cover, especially on the podcast where I know I'm very actionable and not quite as woo-woo. Sometimes we go in the woo-woo zone, and I feel like this was kind of there. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you're like, Taylor, where are you going with this? I'm a little concerned here. Make sure you reach out to me at happinessabound.com, Happiness Abound blog on Facebook, or happiness_abound on Instagram. I would love to hear from you and answer any questions that you have. So that said, I'm leaving you with that today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Give yourself grace and forgiveness, and above everything else, remember, you are capable of happiness abound.